call a regular board meeting, ISD 701 to order. It's December 6th, 2023, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hibbing boardroom, Hibbing High School boardroom. With that, we'll move to item 2. I'd like to welcome people here. Item 2 is pledge of allegiance. Please stand if you wish. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move to item 3, a motion to approve the agenda. This is a truth and taxation hearing. Motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
By Director Polter, supported by Director Duarte. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. With that, we'll move to administrative business. Item A, presentation of tax levy and fiscal 2024 budget. Turn it over to Business Manager, Sir Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight, and we do this every year per statute and review our levy for next year and review our budget for the current year, fiscal year 24. So the format is similar to what I've done in the past, and I will move right along, but feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions or thoughts. So, first going to talk about the reading requirements, and then into the levy discussion, the process, what the current levy is, and some of the bigger factors that are making changes to the levy. And then a quick budget review of the current year with the revenue and expense. And then finally, we'll look at enrollment, which is very important for our revenue calculations. Truth and taxation requires that proposed property tax statements in November based on levies for all taxing jurisdictions, counties, cities, townships, and school districts. Most jurisdictions hold a year prior to certifying the final levy. Back in September, we certified a preliminary levy, and this is the final levy tonight, and they're happy to report there was no change between what we talked about in September and what we're bringing now. So this meeting will satisfy our requirement for truth and taxation. And as I said, the district is required to present on the levy and budget and allow an opportunity for the public to comment. I'm having trouble with, I made this presentation in Excel, and this computer doesn't have that. But, it's supposed to look like that. So the levy that we're certifying here in 2023, we actually started the process last summer, entering information and on what we want to levy for 2024, payable in May and October of 2024, and it's actually reconciled in 2025. So this is just illustrating the 3-year process here on the levy. So what we're doing now actually takes place next year and will be reconciled in 2025. The levy this year is $3,636,317.80. That's an increase of $123,296.93, or 3.41% from what was payable in 2023. And that's a good number for us. It's a relatively stable number, and that's what we like to see. Some significant things that impacted the levy this year is retire insurance increased by $69,000. As you know, we do a pay-as-you-go, so every dollar that is eligible for retiree health insurance, we can levy it straight to the taxpayers. So that will go up and down depending on who's enrolled as a retiree for health insurance. taconite production was down, and I'll get to that in the next slide, but the taconite production goes down, our levy goes up because it's a revenue neutral source for our district. And then debt service was up a little bit, and that's based on just our fund balances for our different bonds that have been issued over the years. I think there's 4 outstanding to meet that obligation. And then the market value of the tax capacity, 2021, it was 975 million. 2022 was almost 1.1 billion. So quite a change in our property values over the year and our net tax capacity. Those were the biggest thing. And there's some smaller adjustments that affected our levy, but those were the most notable ones. This is our taconite levy for the last several years. So it's based on our 3-year average of production in our school district. And when production goes up, the taconite adjustment goes up. So when production goes down, the local taxpayers pay more on the difference. So you can see the 3-year trend is 1.3, 1.3, 1.2. So a bigger year from payable 21 dropping off. So that is the effect of that taconite adjustment to our levy for this year. Was a part of the increase for our levy. This is just it's kind of hard to see, sorry about that, but this is just a look at districts that receive taconite revenue. You see Hibbing is the largest recipient of taconite revenue, but also you can see that proportionately everyone has been seeing a decrease in the production tax. Everyone gets the revenue, so that's just to look at what some of the other districts get.
Is that based on enrollment?
That is based on production in the district.
Production right in our school district?
Yeah, and enrollment, yeah. This is not an interesting looking slide, but what it shows is our full levy is just a regular levy. There's no voter authority there. I mean, there's no operating referendum, no building referendum. So that's just something good to point out for the board that we've so far been managing without any additional assistance from our taxpayers. And then this is just the final levy adoption tonight. This will take care of it with our next motion on the agenda, and then I will move to the 2024 budget review. This was adopted in June of this year, and you see a large deficit in Fund 1. We knew that last spring. We had conversations about how aggressive we should cut, and we knew that there was some funding coming in for cross-subsidy, compensatory revenue. Other areas that we thought the legislature were fairly confident that they would approve, and they did. So this is going to be a conversation as we go forward with our finance committee about revising FY24 and beyond. There's also some other items we talked about. We have some money committed for severance, and those are items that we'll talk about at our next special meeting when we meet with our auditors. We can talk about some of that kind of stuff. This is where it was in the spring, and we know there's work to do here on some additional items that we need to talk about. So.
And just interrupt you, I know that you sent an email to the board today with your presentation, and we had asked, we're trying to pick a date next week for the finance committee to meet, so we'll follow up with you about it. We'd like to meet prior to the audit review and just review some of this information with you before we, and John, I know you were kind of like attend sometimes, not attend other times, but we're hoping that you could attend also when we meet next week, but we'll send you a message on a time and an email.
All right.
What contributes to the deficits, like in transportation, or is this not a good time to ask?
We can try and talk about, that's one of the areas we've been looking at, and transportation is one of the areas we've been really struggling financially.
Yeah.
And this is an underrepresentation of how much we're struggling.
Well, what contributes to the deficit? I mean, why the deficit in a nutshell?
Why the deficit?
Yeah.
We get a certain amount in state aid based
Okay.
on our students.
Okay,
And
for
we-
transportation.
Yep.
And we go beyond that.
We have contracts with 2 contractors, and
Yeah,
we pay more than we get, essentially.
we pay more. Their prices are too high or,
Possibly.
okay.
When's the next one up for
I
negotiation?
mean, just,
We're in that process right now.
Okay.
okay.
And I would guess because we have such a big geographic district,
Is that part of it? Okay.
that would contribute to it, I would
Part of it
guess.
is also the salary. I mean, you're always advertising for bus drivers like every other business in town right now. You got to pay more to get people to work for you.
Yeah.
Fuel costs,
Gas
it's down a little bit
prices,
now,
yeah.
but it was,
Yeah.
diesel was high.
There's a clause for a fuel escalator, so
Yeah,
every penny over a certain amount, we.
and
we
there are
pay.
ways we can get a hold of that, right? By expanding walking distance and all that? Or,
We met yesterday,
We're gonna talk
Yeah.
through all that, yes.
So,
and I think our principals have some good ideas on
Yeah.
how to reduce some
Okay.
routes or consolidate some routes.
so the other question is, there's transportation and extracurricular. So when we do transportation for extracurricular, does that go into Fund 3 or Fund 11?
Fund 3.
So
So that's contributing to us, the charter buses, other transport, running 3 buses for a weekend to the cities for a tournament or whatever it might be.
yeah,
It's gotten insanely expensive.
Yes.
The prices have gone from, take a coach bus for $850 with a driver for the full day and maybe even overnight to $2,400 a trip.
Right.
And our revenue, transportation revenue hasn't kept up with it.
Yeah,
It's
but
actually
it could
gone
be
down.
argued we don't need any coach buses.
Well,
It could be argued.
It could,
Yeah.
but and the other thing is, we've expanded, right? As part of, we moved from the Iron Range Conference into the Lake Superior Conference and
Yeah.
expanded who we play,
Yeah.
and it's more out of the area. It's
But now
costing.
too, when you do that bus upgrade, aren't the booster clubs responsible to pay that?
That's
They-
what I
That would be
thought.
part of this, or?
But it's interesting because, yes, the boosters will typically pick up that cost, but we just run into situations where there's no other bus available, and we have to take a charter bus. And now Shubat has taken on a lot of contracting service for the Grand Rapids School District. So and Shubat takes a lot of our extracurricular runs. So they're limited. So a lot of times if we've got changes, last minute schedule changes or whatever, we might just end up, kids are taking a charter bus to Rockridge because there's no other school bus available or whatever the situation is, and the driver or whatever it might be, and we just end up paying the cost. And we gotta reel that back in.
That's gotta be solvable.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
so when we're taking a coach, because they're out of school buses,
Yeah,
they charge us the full upcharge for that?
They're running a coach, and the cost for a coach, and we just pay that price per mile. It's a different price than a school
well,
bus.
that doesn't seem right. If
No,
we
it
have a
doesn't.
contract for school busing,
Yep.
and we're forced to take a coach, so we don't wanna take a coach, we have to pay for the coach?
That's why we're getting
That's-
into this conversation
Yeah.
and trying.
It's not okay.
I feel like in the olden days,
Yeah.
they never, when we were taking a coach for their convenience, they never charged us the upcharge.
I don't know.
You tie that somehow back to the regular school bus contract, that all that gets tied into one.
Say that again?
If we're hiring you to transport our kids to school every day,
Yeah,
tie that, they're expected to be able to provide buses every day for our students. And I think they should be doing the same thing for hockey and football and basketball, and it's all tied into one thing. We've got a contract with our district. You
Yeah.
Provide us transportation, period.
yeah, for this and more money,
Yes,
no upcharges.
no,
Yeah,
it's ridiculous to pay for a coach to go to Rock Ridge.
exactly.
What we would like to do is if we could, we would like to say, here's what we get in revenue from the state of Minnesota for transportation. You can have it all. Just don't can't take any more, can't go above and beyond. Is that realistic? I don't know. We might have to change some routes, reconfigure what we do, but that's what the goal is, right? To not, this is what we get from allotment.
That's
We
as
can't
much,
overspend.
that's as high as we'll go?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's similar to our food service, which I didn't talk about, but we break even every year. That's the goal. You know, whatever.
And why is that? Why are we on the deficit there?
It's
'Cause
just, it's mostly balanced, but,
of unpaid balances? Is that what it is?
no, that's part of it, yeah. I mean, there's a liability sitting out there, and I think Bonnie's gonna talk about that next, or, you know, when they come, but it's essentially balanced, and IMAC does a really good job of that, you know, not exceeding what we get reimbursed from the state. But,
And I'm gonna go back to transportation, and maybe this is a conversation for a different time. But we left the IRC and went to the Lake Superior Conference. And I feel like 264,000 deficit, I mean, that wouldn't take very many trips to add up to that. I guess, what's the cost benefit? Have we reevaluated the benefit of having moved from the IRC to the Lake Superior Conference? And does it still make sense?
Right.
More than that than just the price of
Also
gas.
still strictly from sports, or is this isn't just
School
because
and
of
sports.
School and
Yeah.
So I mean,
No.
jumping to that, we'd have to know like, of
Yeah.
this dollar amount, how much
Is
is.
sports,
is
yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
a piece that we didn't talk about yet, but special ed transport.
That's the cost that's throwing us over the edges, our special
It is?
education,
Oh.
special transport. We've created,
Vans.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Nope.
we've created a lot of scenarios, a lot of situations, wherever the situation is for a student that they can't be on a regular bus, and we've provided a van. I'm sure you see in the morning, there's all kinds of shoe bat and tack tram vans that are running around our district in the morning. Those numbers have increased.
And are we required to supply that from the state?
It's driven, it's like IEP driven, so like if in an IEP meeting, if it's determined that that student for whatever reason can't be on a regular school bus, then yes, we're on the hook for it. But we do have some input in that. I mean, it's not just, we're
And
not
when
always
it-
forced into
When
it.
it is, you know, a van, is it just one student per van, or can you combine?
You can, you know, and that's where it gets complicated and it gets tricky because, you know, you get some funding back when you have special education students on special transportation. And there's situations where we have special education students on special transportation, but we also have some general ed kids in that van also, for whatever the reason might be. So, yeah, it's a very complicated process. We met as an administrative team yesterday, and we've talked about the overall budget and some of the things that we're gonna have to do to trim things before the spring. But Nathan Letzka, Alex, all of my principals, I have a call tomorrow with one of the bus companies. We're trying to dig into this and figure it out. And at the same time, we got an email from one of the bus companies that they just can't make it. They are gonna need more money, that they're struggling. So it's gonna be reopened for bids. You know, we might have to look at some other contractors that could potentially bid, and maybe that could bring our costs down a little bit.
So with the vans for special ed, I get it if the child's in a wheelchair or,
Right.
you know, something like that.
Right.
Obviously, they need a van.
Right.
Can you give me an example of some other special ed student that would need to be in a van?
We have students that are on partial days for different
Partial
reasons.
days.
They might leave at 1.
Oh,
They might start school at 9 for whatever reason, and they
Okay.
might leave early. So
okay.
those students would have a special transport.
They'd have a special van trip. Their parents can't get them.
Well, if it's, they may, a parent may pick them up, but if
Okay.
it's a special ed student, we're required to,
Okay.
if it's provided in the IEP.
And other than that, is there any other special ed students that have to have a van, other than those partial days and wheelchairs?
Yeah, there's some kid that we've chosen as an IEP team to put on special transport because they can't handle the ride on the bus, or they've been disruptive on the bus for other students. So we provided special transport just to ease the situation on the bus. And sometimes that's our choice. So those, I mean, we're looking at all of those again through a microscope.
So we couldn't, I mean, like, if there's not accessibility issues, would it be cost beneficial? Could we transport those kids in our own
So that's that's some of the things we've been talking
Our
about.
own
So
vehicles?
You know,
School vehicles?
a couple school vans,
Yeah.
maybe we provide some training for some PSAs, and some PSAs transport some kids home on special transport with their own van, because we're already paying that salary. We talked about maybe we buy a couple of our own coach buses. We could run a coach bus to the cities and back for a heck of a lot cheaper than what we're going to charge.
Mhm,
But it would be an upfront investment, buying a bus,
mhm.
getting into that game.
We'd have to get a lease and go through maintenance leases and mechanics, because otherwise we'd be hiring people.
How many vans do we own?
We have
in the district?
4, 5, 6 vans.
Oh, then we should be using those for all the special ed,
And
that we can.
Yeah, and we do, I mean, our maintenance staff and custodial staff do a lot of running for kids right now, just on sick. We have a lot of times we have parents or students that get sick and need to go home, and a parent, for whatever reason, just doesn't drive or can't come pick them up. So our maintenance crew and custodial crew now are driving some kids around. Probably, Tyler said it's typically 1 or 2 a day that they have to
1
transport.
or 2 a day?
You have a kid with, gets sick, they throw up at school and can't get a hold of a parent, or parent says, no, my husband's got the car at work, we can't come get them, we don't have extended family, and we don't want that, don't want that student to suffer for 4 hours in our nurse's office, so we get them home if we can get them home.
Uh-huh.
Do we share any busing with Chisholm right now?
The run to the NLC, are we still doing that, Alex? Are we
I
still?
didn't think so.
Okay, then I would say no. We had some students that attend at the Virginia NLC, and so does Chisholm, and they run a bus that comes through Hibbing and picks up. And last year, we were sharing some transport with them, but you don't think we are this year?
We could be, I think it's minimal.
Oh, okay.
Do they own their own buses?
They do.
Chisholm?
So I
Home
think
buses,
most
those drivers.
I always hated when we went to I think we should own our own buses, but I know you're not for that.
Well, it's not that I'm not for it, it would be, it would be a huge investment to get back into
Well, at this
bike.
point, there would be, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So this is not a solution, and I'm not suggesting it, but, I mean, I just learned of this recently, but I know there's places like in North Dakota, they don't bus,
Mhm.
period. It is up to the parents to drop off and pick up.
Right.
We're gonna have to move
We
towards that.
could maybe,
But it's a state statute.
We talked about, within a certain radius,
yeah,
that we don't.
yeah.
And that's probably what.
We're going all the way south, almost all the way to Floodwood,
Yeah.
north of Side Lake. It's a huge catchment area.
All the way, we go way down south to Meadowlands. We go all the way past Buell.
Yeah, but is that our district?
Yeah.
Well,
Our
so,
district goes almost to Floodwood?
well, so what we've done here now is, yes, our district, but we have extended our routes out a little bit to gain enrollment. I mean, if we have a student that's kind of on the edge and, they get to one of our stops maybe, or maybe we'll make a little accommodation to help them, but we're chasing students too, so we do drive a little bit further.
What about like Chisholm, kids that live in Chisholm, do we pick them up
Yes,
on a bus?
yes. The Side Lake bus comes through,
Chisholm.
cuts across an 84 and picks up a couple of kids and then goes through
Yeah.
Chisholm.
And every day in the afternoon, the Cherry bus and Chisholm bus go past my house,
Okay.
dropping off kids.
Really?
I haven't looked recently, but I think at one time I had told the board that there were 7 school districts in our transporting and picking up kids in our district, 7 other school districts. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was as far as the Warba charter school in Warba, they were sending a van. Yes,
So Jeff, you're saying their buses are from those other districts are picking up kids that live in Hibbing and in your neighborhood?
oh yeah.
Lots of them.
In the morning.
Instead of the
Chisholm
kid going to the
on
bridge
our
even?
So-
They transport them to Chisholm.
And St. Louis County schools come up and down 19th Avenue
That's what
East
we're
in the morning.
Yeah.
And Hibbing.
That's why open enrollment is so awful.
It's too bad the districts couldn't coordinate, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if Chisholm's got a bus coming over here to pick up kids, that they couldn't take the Hibbing kids that are coming from Chisholm and drop them off.
I think we went down that road a few years back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd meet them at the dividing line, then somebody else would pick them up and do it.
Yeah.
So
It was just so contentious 5, 6 years ago when we talked about this, that it was just ugly.
But it's gotta be a struggle for all of our school districts financially and for the bus
Well,
companies.
maybe
Yes.
now that we've got a good relationship with Chisholm because of Rick, maybe that's a conversation we should start having, at least with Chisholm, as just another leg that we can put on this program, create sharing transportation.
And Chisholm brought that up in our meetings, that was one of their items they wanted to talk about, it was transport, and we didn't really get very far with that, but we're still working, but yes, it just, you know, and Chisholm, I think actually, you know, because Chisholm struggles so much with finding their own drivers, even though they have staff, but then people are out sick and whatever, they're looking at contracting busing.
Oh,
Just-
cool.
Oh, right, just because they struggle to find a driver. And now imagine that burden on us now, that if we had 24 routes every day, that we had to, you know, have bus drivers for, that's a whole nother,
Yeah,
What would you do with
Management
those-
piece here.
What do you do with those employees after they're done
Yeah.
driving the bus?
Yeah.
You know,
I do agree with maybe looking into maybe buying a coach though.
right.
That might help.
I mean, if we bought one bus and we saved on one run a week, I mean, it would be something.
Or use it for the teams that are going on the weekend to Minneapolis or whatever.
Well, and I wonder, you know, when they go on those trips, how many kids actually end up coming back on the bus, right?
Yeah.
So like, I think we just have to look at things more holistically.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the kids go home with their parents, do.
Right.
So-
I think that depends on the age though,
person,
Yeah,
because I think the younger kids definitely like to go home with their parents. But I think the older ones, it's more of that team bonding.
Yeah.
They enjoy it, they watch the movie, but so I think it's different per grade.
and for sport, maybe.
Yeah.
And we think, you know, think about our athletes and our kids. I mean, 6'2", 6'3" boys are, you know, on a school bus for 3-4 hours before a game. That's not the best way to prepare for, you know, and it's one thing if you're just running to Wasabi East or you're running to Nashville, but if you're on the bus for extended time, and then to be able to, you know, for kids to do their homework and have some lighting and just all that kind of stuff, it's just not.
Yeah.
well, last week, high school, the hockey teams went to Mankato.
To Mankato.
It's a long haul.
On school buses or coach?
No coach.
Coach. More than one coach or just one? Two coach? But like you said, the boosters pay for that.
Yes.
But then what was your answer about that? The boosters sometimes don't?
Well, I mean, maybe I painted that incorrectly, but what I'm saying is there's situations where I've talked with Keith where we're running a charter bus over to Deer River, and I was like, why are we taking a charter bus to Deer River?
Oh, that
Well,
part,
there's
yeah,
no other
that's, but
buses
that's
available.
separate than what she
Yeah,
was saying
yeah.
about the booster clubs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I think how it's structured is the district pays a share, and then the booster club
Yeah.
pays
Right.
a share.
They pick up the
Yeah.
difference.
The difference, yeah.
we can discuss that.
Yeah, and what- I guess what I'm trying is we're tearing it apart and we're trying to figure it out. I'm gonna have a hard conversation tomorrow with one of our bus companies just because of the service that we've been getting has been poor lately, I mean, very poor. So, yeah, we're trying to pull it back a little bit. And the other thing that we've done is the work that we've done with Tom Watson, not only with the consulting that he did with Chisholm or our strategic plan, he's also helped us with our bus contracts because he's really an expert on, it's a complicated funding mechanism to get reimbursed, and a lot of times you get reimbursed 2 or 3 years later than when the expense happened. And he's helped us kind of reel that back in and understand that a little bit better. And so we've actually recouped some money lately that we probably were losing in the last few years with his help, but it's still not enough. We just don't get enough aid. We don't get enough revenue to pay the
Cover all of
bills.
our miles. It's just-
Yep.
So past transportation now, because that's not even the largest one, but
Yeah.
Can you talk about the community
Yes.
education one a little bit?
Yes,
Because that's
please.
even larger.
Yes.
Yes.
Community ed, we'll talk about it when we meet next, but we knew that we were gonna spend fund balance to get the early learning center off the ground. And then reevaluate in a year or two on what the enrollment is there, which is positive, it's strong. But we knew we were gonna spend money there for that new staff and that new building. There's a custodian there, I think, and
Yeah.
food service there. The good news with that one is we think there's additional funding coming for early childhood, right, and VPK. So yes, overspent on that one for sure.
So what are you saying though, okay, so you knew we were gonna spend this and that we were gonna expect this. Are we to expect this in this category for several more years to come? Or is this gonna soon, like how many more years are we gonna expect this because of what we spent to get it up and running?
Yeah, that's a decision we'll have to make. I think, like I said, if the funding comes through, that'll help with this. But at some point, those funds will run out and we'll have to cover
Director
it.
Gabarty, I don't think we would ever break even on an early childhood program. I mean, it is a little bit of an investment to hopefully increase our kindergarten numbers. But with this VPK, and again, I mean, I'm hopeful. They put enough money in, or we're slotted that we should be receiving some of it here in this next round. So the application, Kirk and I will work on the application in January, is when it's due. But we're really confident that we're gonna get that. It's not gonna, it won't pay the whole bill, it won't, but it'll probably be about 3/4 of the bill in the estimates that we're looking at, so it still would be an investment in the program, but if we can maintain those kindergarten numbers around 180, we're in good shape. If those kindergarten numbers start falling back off to 160, 140, we would have to make some tremendous cuts around here if that kindergarten enrollment falls off. So we're really trying to bolster that enrollment and then hold them until they graduate if possible. So.
But I mean, if we know that we're gonna expect this, I mean, then it's not such,
Right.
a hard hit.
Sure.
If you know that it's gonna be coming. So I guess that's what I, was wondering if going forward, we can just expect this for a while, then it's the unknown things that, hit you hard, not
Sure,
the known.
sure.
Yes, sure.
And when you say, Rick, that you're gonna do the application in January, and I might have this mixed up, but is that to apply for like reallocated seats for this year?
There's and I don't know the exact timeline of when they're due. When we met yesterday, Kirk knows exactly, and we're supposed to work on it here next week, but there's the seats that are out there like we got last year, that there was just some extra money that the state said, hey, here's all these seats, apply for it. We got some of that, we're gonna apply for that again. But then this is the new VPK application to actually get a 0.6 ADM for those students for the hours that they're in the building. So if we roughly get $10,000 per student in state revenue, we should get roughly about $6,000 for our VPK students that qualify, which if we qualify for 80 or 90 seats, $500,000, that's, then this looks a heck of a lot different next year.
That's for the 24-25 school year.
Yes.
Maybe if we're lucky, we'll get some
Some
reallocated
reallocated,
dollars
yes.
to offset the 375.
Yes.
And if we get the VPK, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah. Then you're talking about reduced or free tuition also for parents.
Correct. Correct.
So did we already receive the money from the IRRB for doing this collaboration with Chisholm?
No.
So when does that come into play?
That should be coming, the message that I got last week is that 2 school districts out of the 6 that got the funding haven't completed their application. So for the IRRB to bond for this $50 million, they want to go in and ask for it at one time. They don't want to ask for my chunk and Chisholm's chunk or Hibbing's chunk, whatever. They want to do it in one chunk, so they're waiting on those applications. So I think they might have extended that deadline until the end of December, and then when I talked with Whitney at IRRB, she thought no later than the end of January, we would have those funds, so. And that's 8 million, that's.
Yeah, so that could, I mean, that impacts this.
It does, I mean, again, different funds
Right.
and what we can use it for, but it does, it will free up some general fund dollars that we've had for maintenance. It'll help us, definitely.
That's part of the conversation we want to have with the committee, you know.
Yeah.
That, you know, there's $1 million for cross subsidy that we didn't really plan on here.
Yeah.
You know, there's 700,000 for compensatory revenue and some other sources that they threw in there last minute that could change our conversation this spring. So that's kind of what we met yesterday as our admin team. We're working on it, we're starting on it, so.
Yeah.
It's complicated and there's a lot of moving parts here. And what complicates this more is that Fund 3 Transportation and Fund 5 Capital cannot go into a deficit. So if you end the year negative with those, in either of those, direct transfer from Fund 1. So we found ourselves in a position of Fund 1 fared okay and Fund 3 did not, so we had to directly transfer that to Fund 3 and it all nets out to an end result that wasn't favorable for us. But
What's capital again?
that would be like buildings, supplies, cleaning supplies.
Not construction stuff?
No.
Just supplies?
So in this construction is zero, we have no more construction projects, no more work in progress and no more revenue coming in.
Supplies is school supplies or building supplies?
That would be more like building supplies,
Okay.
furniture,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. yeah.
And then the debt services.
Debt service is, really that's the one that we control the least. It's levied and there's a state aid component and it's based on what our fund balances are in debt service and it adjusts based on what payments we have upcoming. So as we near the maturity of some of our bonds and the calculations are showing that we're a little short or we're a little long on what we have in the bank, it'll adjust accordingly to make sure we meet that date, whether it's 2025 or 2042, I think we have. So, and then the trust is scholarships, and that's pretty much a wash. Extracurricular and student activities as well.
What are our fund balances right now?
It was at about 6 million at the end of 22, and now it's going to be about 4.5 million because of the loss to the general fund and the transportation. And we'll get into that in more detail.
Is that about 9%?
Yeah. Oh, it's well in excess of what our policy is,
Okay.
but it's still alarming as how quickly it's gone down.
It's so, it's so student driven, and we're coming out of, 3 to 4 years of student loss, and now we're starting to kind of inch our way back a little bit. I mean, that, we've gained 70 students this year and we've held them up until this point. That's $700,000. If they stay until the end of the school year, that's $700,000 that we hadn't planned for when Alex built the budget. So, things, this is always difficult for me, and Alex and I sometimes kind of struggle with it because I look at something differently than he does as a business manager. But, we're talking about something that's already come and passed,
Yeah.
right? It's already gone, and now we have to make an adjustment and fix it. But going forward, there's all kinds of little pots of money that we're going to be realizing here as revenue that we haven't planned for. We didn't know if it was coming. Like Alex said, we're going to get another $1 million in special ed cross subsidy. That's going to start coming. We're actually getting into something now. I found out today. The compensatory revenue that's based on our free and reduced applications, that was hovering around $1 million. That's projected to be at 1.8 million this year because we have more free and reduced people that are qualifying. We've got more applications turned in. So we're gonna see an uptick in revenue that we're gonna talk about, and this is gonna be really complicated because we're gonna talk about reductions and some cuts in the spring, and then we're gonna talk about new revenue that's coming in where we might be looking pretty flush or good in the future, and it's gonna be tough to get our public to understand why that is, and it's all based on enrollment. When those kids fall off, we still have to provide programming, we still have gym teachers, we still got pools to run, and when it just hits you and you're not prepared for it, that's where the fund balance is gonna take that hit, because it's all students that are just walking out the door. And we got all kinds of ideas on things that we're hoping to gain them back. Mr. Snyder and Mrs. Sikora are gonna talk about an online program in the future that we're hoping to do in the high school, that a lot of the students that have left for other online opportunities, we're hoping we can get them back and be in our program, so that revenue just isn't walking out the Blue Skies and the Connections Academies. Those numbers are all going up too in our district for people that are leaving, so we want to try to keep them and attract them. That's why we would like to meet with the finance committee and really kind of tear this apart a little bit deeper, and then bring it back to the full board in that audit presentation with a little bit more understanding, because there's going to be so many moving pieces here. That the other thing Alex is going to put a plug in for tonight is we would like to do, we're talking about audits of our special ed department, talking about audits of other departments in the district, that we'd like to do a business, provide a little bit of contract and service for Alex to get somebody that's more worldly in all of this information to guide us on, because the pots of money that are going to be coming at us here in the next couple of years, if our enrollment continues to climb, I don't know that we're prepared to budget and plan for it, just you and I.
We just
need
need
some
help.
help.
And
Yeah.
Honestly can say that you and I talk about this every day.
Every-
I mean, even if you're sick
Usually
or
on
on
the ride home
vacation.
too, so.
Yeah. If one of us is gone, we still talk about it every day.
Yep, yep.
You know? So just bring this company in and get a little bit of help, and the cost is fairly minimal, but.
How much of this do you feel, it doesn't have to be, accurate, just your opinions, do you feel is caused by the new mandates?
I'd say a third of it.
Yeah.
Roughly, wouldn't you say a third?
There's some legacy costs from prior years, but that's a component for sure. And that's where we need help, is
Yes.
looking at how this is all gonna unfold. Now that our COVID dollars are gone, we spent the balance of them, or most of them, in fiscal year '23. There's a small balance for some learning loss that's gonna cover our social workers' interventionists for this current year, but that's it. So
The
we're
hard
at,
part is with that, to Director Gabarty, is that, it's really frustrating because the legislative session ended, and things like unemployment insurance and paid family leave, all that's coming, but we don't even really know what that means for us. Like, nobody's ever sat us down and said, here's what you're gonna have to do for unemployment insurance, here's what you gotta budget for. So we just wait till they walk through the door and how many applications we get, and this paid family leave piece, this earned safe and sick time, that's all it costs us. That,
we don't even know yet.
and we don't even know what it's gonna cost. It's just,
So that's not necessarily yet factored into this?
No,
yet.
no, no,
Okay,
no,
that's what I
Yeah.
wasn't, yeah.
yeah.
Part that makes me nervous is, there's a lot that makes me nervous, but, like the cross-subsidy funding, right? And the free and reduced funds, the compensatory funding. I feel like we still need to make adjustments,
Oh, yes.
because if we don't, this funding could go away, right? So if we don't right size, we could end up in a real situation. And so I just feel like, the interventionists, we know that that's proved to do good things for our students. That's important. How do we balance it all? The other thing I say is marketing our district and all the good things that we have going on. I think we need to really work hard on marketing our district. I don't know how we do that.
What funding could go away? What were you talking about?
The compensatory funding, the additional $800,000 that they were talking about, and the $1 million cross subsidy, cross-funding, special ed funding,
Oh, okay.
if that goes away, if we don't start to right size, then there could be a big cliff.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and it could, right? I mean, it's, you know, one legislative session could repeal it, change it. Yes.
With the swings that we've had in the political
Yep.
power, control, climate,
Yeah, that, you know, the other piece is just, you know, we're gonna have some reductions in the spring. We'll have to. But it's not just Hibbing. I mean, I'm sure you've seen what's going on in Grand Rapids when they didn't pass that question. I mean, they're talking $4 million in cuts. They're talking elementary class sizes that are gonna be in the high 30s, maybe even 40 next year. Talking about closing buildings, I mean, and, you know, it's, our other neighbors around us are in the same situation. It isn't just us. So this historic funding that we got, right, it's great, but it's still just not enough.
and that's why I hope we can be as proactive as we can be, so we don't end up in those situations. And
Right.
even, so right now, we don't have an operating referendum. But there's two pieces to that, right? There's an operating referendum that we can authorize without going out for a vote, and then there's the piece that we could go out for a
The voter
vote,
approved.
which I don't think we want to do that. But is there anything, I mean, maybe we can talk about it with the budget, with the audit,
Yep.
if there's anything we should be doing kind of proactively?
We already levied for the maximum board approved.
We do.
Yep, 724 pupil. So anything beyond that would have to be voter approved.
So we're at the max.
We are, yeah.
And that was because of our early learning center and the super project, we upped that
Yeah, I remember that.
to get to that max, yeah. But that was, you know, that was the other thing that I was trying to do last year at the legislature and work with Mr. Farnsworth, is we're trying to, given the historic nature of this building and the costs, we're trying to get special permission to get additional levy authority, just particular for this building. That's what we were working on. That's where it kind of hit a roadblock, because new taxes just weren't on the agenda down there. And even though it would have been insignificant in the grand scheme of things for the whole state, our little district, getting something for this historic building, just nobody was willing to say that we're going to increase taxes to do it.
Well, I really think we should ask the IRRB for that. I feel
We
strongly
can sure
about
try.
that.
Yeah, we can sure try.
Let's make a fund.
Yep. Maybe we invite
Let's-
them. Maybe we invite them here for.
We have to maintain this historic building.
Yep.
We need help with that.
Yep.
It's time for, you know, maybe some help from the IRRB
And
for our
getting-
district.
And getting Rams on board to support us and advocate for us at the IRRB. Because
Yeah.
I agree with Kathy, like, I feel like it shouldn't be a levy on our taxpayers.
No.
There should be funding
Yes.
somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the mining companies built this school, right?
It's such a huge extra cost for our district
Yeah.
to maintain this historical
Yes.
building.
I'd like to see a breakdown of what it costs us to
Yeah.
maintain this thing.
Yeah,
Not just the maintenance and upkeep, but utilities.
yep,
It's gonna be just massive amount
right.
of money just being spent on heat utilities.
You know, and I think we need to admit, we need help.
Right.
And we need it right now.
I agree.
And every other district's doing tens of millions of dollars to
Yep.
build new buildings. We don't need to do that.
Right, but we need help
We
with
need help
this.
with this,
Yeah.
And we're being penalized for having been fiscally responsible
yes.
and
Yes.
taking on projects in a responsible way,
And
and that is
maintaining our
just not.
facilities for all these years,
Yep,
investing our money
yep, our money.
in maintaining all our elementary buildings
Yep.
and the high school, where other districts have let theirs,
Let theirs
Fall
crumble, and then they
apart.
just let them crumble and build a new school.
made no money, made no significant investments in their properties for decades, and they get rewarded with new buildings, where we get nothing.
Nothing.
And
So,
underestimate project costs and then go back for round two.
Yes.
Yeah.
and the declining enrollment that they have.
That's
So
right.
they should, doesn't make sense to build brand new, but that's another story.
So
That's a whole nother story,
How do we
right?
invite the IRRB, Rams, and get them on board? I think we need to do that.
Don't we have those lobbyists? Could they help in any way?
Absolutely, yeah.
Could we ask them to start
Yes,
talking about it?
yes, and we are, I mean, we're
But
still,
specifically tell them, when we want money to maintain the high school?
there's actually the thing that I found recently, and I probably won't get it all correct because I just looked at it quickly, but I worked with Jeff Anderson right around Thanksgiving to see if it would benefit us. There's a alternate facilities funding that some school districts get. Minneapolis School District gets it, the Duluth School District gets it. You have to have 1 million square feet of, I think it's about 1 million square feet of buildings. And then you qualify for this additional state funding for what they call alternative facilities funding. So what I had asked is, through legislative work, could we get, because there's like us and one other district in the entire state that has a building with this historical status, could we get lumped into that alternate facilities funding, even though we don't meet the threshold on the square feet, but we meet the threshold on the cost to maintain per square feet or per square foot. So we're, again, just stepping into it, step one. But I think that might be, it's not a levy on our taxpayers, right? It would be state funding, but they're giving
would
it,
it come-
they're
would it
giving
come
it
every
to other
year?
districts.
Would it come every year?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
How many square feet do we have?
I think when I asked Tyler, I want to say it was like 700,000, 800,000 when we include everything.
So we get my triple RV money, we build a 300,000 square foot addition.
Yeah.
And then we qualify for the
Then we
alternate
qualify.
facilities fund?
We don't have to have money when we start.
We
can
can
just-
borrow that, or get a triple RV to pay for it.
So just start shoveling. Then ask for the money.
So I think we have our work cut out for us as a board. We need to be proactive. and
We
try to-
do, yeah.
Go ahead and continue.
Oh, don't you want to be here till
Before your
10
legs-
p.m.?
Before your legs get tired.
So we will be talking more about that in coming meetings. So, this is just first discussion and just a reflection of our total revenue, 10% is local. I think it was 9% prior years, so a little bit more is coming on levy. Generally it's around 9-10%. This is I'm sorry about the formatting, but this is the expense. And as you can see, the vast majority is in elementary, regular, special ed instruction, pupil and instructional support. And then the remainder being buildings, administrative, and other costs. Finally, this is the enrollment for the last several years. I'm happy to report that it's gone up this year. So after a few tough years there, we're going in the right direction. I think we were at, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 2060, 2160?
2178, I think it was today. Yes, 21, I look every day.
Did anyone leave?
Has our, as a population in Hibbing, does that follow kind of this, do we know, does it follow the same peaks and valleys? Do we
That would
know?
be an interesting thing to
Yeah.
see.
Because that's a huge factor in,
I've never
Kids
even
being
thought about
here.
that before, but yes, I wonder. Well, let's look at that, Alex. I'm
yeah,
curious because
I would be too.
the population has fallen off in our city, and
Well,
I haven't even thought about
aging
that.
population,
Yeah.
less kids.
Less kids.
Yeah.
Open enrollment,
Yeah.
there's a lot of factors that come into besides the
When
size
you
of the town.
look
PSU.
at 2015, 2016, I mean, that wouldn't that be great to be back up in those numbers? But I mean, if your younger family population is not even near what it was back then, I mean, it would be foolish to expect it
You're not
to
gonna
be
get
that,
there.
right? I mean, realistically, so it would be interesting to kind of know.
Yes, yeah.
You don't really know though, they only do the census every 10 years, so as
Oh,
far as
true.
giving.
True.
But
No.
I don't know if we ask, is there any, even the city, you know, I feel like I always have to answer, how many people live in your household? How many people are in this age group, that age group? You know, I don't know if the school has that or not, or the city, but.
There's the Minnesota State demographer, I don't know if I'm saying that right or not, but she put on a good presentation year before last and predicted over 10 years how everything's going.
Oh,
What, you can get that information from her, because she had it for the whole state, and whatever cities you want to look at.
And she did?
I feel like I did that webinar.
Yeah,
Was it
You
an
talked
SBA
about that.
webinar? Yeah.
We talked
and
about that.
Yeah, and I feel like our population was increasing, but it was basically like the retired,
right.
number of retirees.
It was
into this
increasing,
part.
but it didn't really reflect
The
where all the
wrong-
money and this and that is,
Yeah.
it's just a number.
And were
The
those
wrong age group.
were they her projections or were those real numbers?
They were real numbers.
Real numbers.
Yeah. But this is good, and I think we, again, have to keep,
That would be interesting, like you said, just see what that is, whatever it means, but compare it.
but we have a lot of good things going on in our school district, and I think we have to keep promoting all the good things that, and we're solid. So hopefully we can keep that number going up.
Yes.
Yep, and hopefully we, hit our bottom after the pandemic and stabilize now.
Yeah.
That would help tremendously. That's it, unless there's any other questions or public comment, opportunity for public comment.
Well, thank you very much for the
Very good.
presentation and the questions and discussions, and we'll get together with the committees, and with that, we'll
Wait, one second. John, I just want to commend you, Alex, and your staff, and Rick, for managing our finances the way you do, because as difficult as this is, there's a lot of work that goes into it, so it's very much appreciated.
and we'll see you after the next committee.
Thank you, Alex.
Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
thanks,
just raise
Alex.
it again. Yeah. With that, we'll move to item B, adopt and certify the final 2023 payable 2024 levy as presented.
All move.
Chair will support, moved by Director Polter, supported by Chair Berklich. Any discussion?
Yeah, and again, I just want to say, you know what, thank you, because when I got my property tax statement as a taxpayer, and I looked at the difference, the increase from the school districts, we've made a lot of improvements in this district and invested a lot of money in our kids. And the part that was passed on to the taxpayers, in my opinion, was minimal compared to other
Compared to the
things that
results.
have gone on. So, I mean, I think our community should feel proud of the work and the way we're approaching things so financially responsible. So,
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, thank you. With that, Director Polter,
Motion to adjourn.
without objection, meeting is adjourned. It's 6:58.
Are you sure about that? That looks like 6:59 here.
It's 6:58 plus or minus 1 minute.
30 seconds.
And thank everybody for showing up.